The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Crime News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Crime News Talk. Today is February 17th, 2019. And this week, Robocops and DNAAAAH. My name's Basil. That's right, folks. Basil here, and I am going to be bringing you all the hard-hitting and important information today. Solo Gonz, my trusty sidekick. Don't tell him I said that. He's hard at work trying to deliver a precious piece of cargo that we have all been waiting for. That's right, Age of Deceit 3. It's on its way. In fact, he has shut himself into a hermitage, where he is not. He has made the difficult decision to put aside all other earthly podcasts to work on Age of Deceit 3, dropping soon. Everybody be prepared. Gonz's Age of Deceit series will forever overshadow my life's work, as you all know, and so I'm just as excited as you guys are to accept my ultimate failings, but that's what the people want. So he's putting his money where his mouth is, and that's why you are here with me today. And we're just going to jump right into it. It's been a while since I've done a solo one. So I figured I owed it to Gonz to cover this week. So here we go. You and me, Dan, with your headphones, just trying to survive, working in the cubicle. And also to Jeanette in South Carolina. This one's for you. Okay, we're going to open up the show here with a Flippy adjacent update. Oh, and this is a sad thing. I do not have a soundboard. I need to get my own soundboard. So this show will be soundboard-less. If you hear any jingles or anything, that means that Gonz put them in post. So there you go, Gonz. Pressure's on. So yeah, no jingles. We had a great friend of the show send in a Flippy update jingle that we are going to be using in the future. Or maybe, like I said, Gonz will edit it in here. So this is a Flippy adjacent update. For those who don't know, Flippy is our very special name for the robots who are taking over the world, one job at a time, specifically robot arms, disembodied robot arms. But this report comes from futurism.com, and the article is titled, India just swore in its first robot police officer. That's right, folks. Robocop is here. The article reads, India just swore in its first robotic police officer, which is named KP Bot. Don't know what it means, but KP Bot. Okay. The animatronic-looking machine was granted the rank of sub-inspector on Tuesday, and it will operate the front desk of the Thiruvananthapuram police headquarters, according to India Today. The robot was welcomed aboard with a salute from Pinarayi Vijayan. The chief minister of Kerala, India Today reports that the robot, quote, responded with a perfect salute, which presumably means that it didn't karate chop its own head off in the process. Aside from the symbolic gesture of integrating robotics into the police force, KP Bot doesn't do much. At the moment, it can sit behind a police station's front desk, recording complaints and directing visitors to the correct departments as needed. It can also salute at higher ranked officers, according to India Today. In the future, it may be integrated with facial recognition software or the capability to detect bombs. So there you go. It can take your complaint and detect bombs. I guess that's sort of useful. Those two things can unfortunately be connected. KP Bot is also for some reason gendered, with Assistant Deputy of Police Mano Abraham explicitly declaring that the inanimate object is a woman. Quote, the empowerment of gender equality were kept in mind while deciding on the gender of the first robot, end quote, said Loknath Bahra, the Director General of Police. Quote, also the fact that most front office jobs are managed by women was considered. So the robot is officially gendered as a woman, girl power. Unfortunately, I think it kind of backfires because it's a secretary robot. So I don't know, a little bit of a madman feel there. Or madmen. Oh boy. Okay, so there you go. We got a first Robocop in India. India, I guess not surprisingly, has been one of the countries ahead of everybody else into integrating personhood in general. For a long time on Canary Cry Radio, we've been talking about the subject of personhood regarding objects or beings that are not human beings. I believe it was last year or maybe 2016. Oh, wait. Oh, wow. It's 2019. Yeah. So in the past few years, India, of course, they have personhood for cattle or cows. And they then created personhood laws for, I believe, all animals, specifically apes in northern India. And now we have robots joining the police force. There's not a whole, they didn't go full Sophia on this one. She's not an official citizen, I do not believe, or at least it's not reported in this article. But she does have some very, very specific makeup on. They really wanted to really push it home that KP Bot was a woman. She's got very dramatic eyebrows painted on, blue eyeshadow that is just all encompassing, and some very red lipstick. And so there you go. The first example of again, not robots being used in the police force, because we see that all the time. And of course, that poor, sad mall security robot who killed itself by jumping into a fountain. Rest in peace. So we've seen robots being used in law enforcement, but this one is actually sworn in as a sub-inspector. I suppose that's kind of like, I believe, in America, I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but in America, when you have horse-mounted policemen and policewomen, the horses are actually sworn in as officers as well. I think they do that mostly so you can convict people who assault the horses. That's my guess. So there you go. Robocop in the house. So, oh man, I wish Gons was here. He would have such a fun joke having to do with robots, and we'd all have a good laugh, but that's okay. He'll be back. Moving on, BGR.com, which is just kind of a generalized news outlet. They are reporting China's gene-edited babies may have enhanced intelligence due to genetic quirk. And quirk is an interesting word for them to use there, because as we reported last year, the Chinese scientist He Jiankui, it says it in the article. So let's get into it. Late last year, a Chinese scientist named He Jiankui boldly declared that he had produced what would be the world's first genetically modified humans. In working with embryos of families with HIV-positive parents, the scientist used the gene editing technology CRISPR to delete a specific gene. Now, researchers believe that the twin girls who were reportedly born healthy may actually have altered brain function as a result. In fact, it's possible that the deletion of the gene called CCR5. That's right. The gene is called CCR5. Canary Cry Radio 5 might have actually made them smarter than they would otherwise have been, but it will be some time before we know for sure. As MIT Technology Review reports, the babies known as Lulu and Nana had their CCR5 genes deleted in the gene editing process while they were still just embryos. That gene has been linked with the suppression of cognitive function in lab tests. Real-world observations also point towards the lack of the Canary Cry Radio 5 gene being linked to higher intelligence in school, and a new study suggests its absence could help individuals recover more rapidly after a traumatic event like a stroke. He Zhuangqi did not make clear whether or not he had any intention of altering the cognitive abilities of the children he experimented on, and never made it clear if he believed there was a link between Canary Cry Radio 5 gene and cognitive function. The last we heard of He, the scientist was reportedly under house arrest as the Chinese government determines how to handle the case. It's of course worth noting that nobody knows whether or not the little girls at the heart of this whole mess have had their brains affected in any significant way. Scientists following the case have noted that we don't know the full impact of the changes he made until the youngsters grow up. Still, there's a good reason why the genetics community is so firmly against human modification, and this is a great example. If the girls wind up a bit smarter, that's one thing, but the opposite, or worse, could also be true. We won't know for a while either way. So there we go. The two first genetically altered babies, which were sort of done in the cover of darkness in China before this scientist published his papers. Unofficially, by the way, he could not, I believe at the time of our original reporting, he could not get his papers published in legitimate scientific journals because they disagreed with the legality of what he was doing. And so he just published online himself, and that's how this sort of spread around. So as far as the official scientific community, I think it's questionable if these girls even exist. But what's very interesting is that the gene he took out, CCR5, apparently may be a gene that naturally suppresses our cognitive function, which is an interesting concept to think, like, why would we have a gene that suppresses our cognitive function, whether that's on purpose or not, or, you know, maybe if you drink enough alkaline water or whatever, depending who you ask. If you build a giant copper pyramid on top of your house, maybe you can get rid of this gene as well. But here we go. We got two young girls with the gene removed, and they say they're not actually making a claim that these young girls are exhibiting higher intelligence as children. I mean, remember, these babies are like 4 months old, I think, right now, which, you know, who knows if these 4 months old were reciting equations with perfect, well, in any language, I guess, that would be pretty impressive. So I think this is a little bit coming just out of expectation, but I had never heard of this CCR5 gene. And I could see this being a commercialized service. If you're having a child, if you're pregnant, if you're planning on getting pregnant, I mean, if we figure out if these two young girls, Lulu and Nana, become super geniuses as kids, you better believe that there's going to be a market for deleting this CCR5 gene in embryos all over the world. Just cough up the big bucks, mommy and daddy. And I think that's one that people will cough up the money for. You know, maybe if you live in Scandinavia, maybe there will be government subsidized embryonic enhancement due to the socialist nature of their government over there. They just like giving all the babies the good stuff they can. So there you go. I'm not sure what to think about this. This will definitely be a story that we'll continue to cover, or just keep an eye on, because I mean, that's huge. I feel like the real gravity of that situation may have worn off a little bit now in the general public, but that's a huge deal that these babies, being the first truly genetically altered babies in the womb and being born with an alteration, that doesn't normally happen. So hopefully, I do hope, let me be clear, because these are two real babies, real human beings. I hope that they do become super geniuses. I hope they become super geniuses and they find the show and they're very impressed with, my vocabulary and my ability to, do fast math or something like that. Because hey, super smart babies. They will either save us all or join Skynet in its quest to defeat all of humanity. So we'll figure that out in a few years. Now, speaking of genetics and speaking of the beast system, speaking of the beast system, yeah, see, I can do my own jingles. CNN.com is reporting synthetic DNA could help with research. Synthetic DNA could help with search for alien life. Cold reading's hard. That's what I'm doing here. This is called a cold read. Scientists have long suggested that life exists beyond Earth. The processes behind it may be entirely different from everything we know. On Thursday, researchers announced that they were able to create a DNA-like molecular system that can store and transmit information. It's not a life form, but the genetic system represents what an alternative to DNA-based life may resemble. It could also help scientists keep a different picture in mind when searching for life elsewhere in the universe. NASA funded the research, and the findings were published in the journal Science. Quote, life detection is an increasingly important goal of NASA's planetary science missions, and this new work will help us to develop effective instruments and experiments that will expand the scope of what we look for, said Lori Glaze, acting director of NASA's Planetary Science Division, in a statement. DNA is like a toolkit that stores and transmits vital information passed from living organisms to its offspring. The molecule's ingredients, called nucleotides, are four components called adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Oh, that was pretty good. We've got some medical professionals that listen to this show, so I'm just constantly looking for their approval in my pronunciations of these very complicated words. The synthetic, if you are a medical professional and you are impressed with my abilities, go ahead and send an email to facelikethessun@gmail.com and let Gons know how impressed you are with me. The synthetic DNA includes those components as well as four others that act as copies of the information in DNA. This creates the double helix structure that works to store and transfer information. According to the study, like regular DNA, it can also evolve information. And if you were wondering, if you were looking for an elaboration on what it means to evolve information, this is not the show for you, because it is not in this article, and I have no idea what it means for DNA to evolve information. I'm assuming it has something to do with DNA's ability to adapt to environmental circumstances. So I'm just going to leave it there. The article continues. The research team from universities across the United States calls it Hachimoji DNA. In Japanese, the name means 8-letter. They're referring to the fact that it has double the amount of letters that organic human DNA has. Quote, by carefully analyzing the role of shape, size, and structure in Hachimoji DNA, this work expands our understanding of the types of molecules that might store information in extraterrestrial life on alien worlds, end quote, said study author Stephen Benner, founder of the Foundation for Applied Molecular Evolution in Alachua, Florida, in a statement. This study is just the beginning of a larger conversation about what kinds of genetic systems could support the formation of life and where they might exist. But by structuring something foreign, it's a little easier to imagine it living in an area that might have been thought to be inhospitable. For example, NASA is eyeing ocean worlds in our solar system, like the moons Europa and Enceladus, as potential spots for life beyond Earth. Meanwhile, the Curiosity rover searches for evidence of past life on Mars. Quote, incorporating a broader understanding of what is possible in our instrument design and mission concepts will result in a more inclusive and therefore more effective search for life beyond Earth. said Mary Wojtek, senior scientist for astrobiology at NASA headquarters. So there you go, folks. This is a pretty extreme story. Synthetic DNA, a brand new type of DNA. In the past, tampering with DNA is one thing. Taking existing DNA, even editing DNA, it's all started with the original product, DNA found in living beings on planet Earth, that has been around, propagating species for years, years and years, but now with this existence of synthetic DNA, it's almost like creating our own type of, I don't want to say life because it's not necessarily new life, but it's like human beings rewriting the coding of our existence. And so this is a pretty heavy subject, and especially in the context of the stuff we talk about on this show and other shows. That is, you go back to movies like Jurassic Park, where bringing back dinosaurs using DNA found in a mosquito was sort of playing God. It's Jeff Goldblum, our good friend of the show, Jeff Goldblum, so famously pointed out in the Jurassic Park movies. Well, this is taking that to the next level, rewriting our own type of code for the existence of life and the propagation of species. This is a big deal. And going back to, some pre-flood theories where you talk about tampering with DNA, you talk about stuff like that. This is a whole nother level. For years, we've been talking about the dangers of tampering with DNA and messing with the building blocks of life, and DNA being considered sort of the basic component of life. And what these scientists have done is created a new basic component that did not exist beforehand. So talk about playing God. This is pretty much the pinnacle of that concept. And, it does not say in this story, I'm assuming they would say if they had sort of activated this DNA or tried to have this new DNA sequencing type interact with living beings, if they're trying to sort of animate or embody this new type of life coding. It does not say, but if that is, that's just the next logical step. Now, of course, NASA, sorry, I'm still a little sick. Of course, NASA says, we just wanted to create a new type of DNA just so we could look for it other places. So we know what we're looking for. That is, if you really think about it, that is such a whack explanation for this. And maybe it's my ignorance. Please, actually, I do know for a fact, at least one person in NASA listens to the show. So somebody needs to send me an email and let me know how NASA would use just the concept of the existence of different kind of DNA to search for alien life. I guess if I was going to make my best guess, if we were looking for maybe a type of life that used different chemicals to support life, I don't know if there's anything in particular about DNA as we know it that requires things like oxygen and water, which is sort of the basic fundamentals of keeping life alive on Earth. But mostly when it comes to looking other places for life, they use mostly different types of imaging from satellites and telescopes that maybe detect different types of chemicals, so they can see if there's water or oxygen or hydrogen or what is the compounds, what are the compounds that comprise the makeup of an atmosphere of another planet. To my knowledge, they do not just have a super camera that detects DNA or other types of DNA on other planets. That's some like truly I mean, if that's, I mean, the fact is that is not the way it goes. So I'm not exactly sure with my knowledge base how this is just not a good explanation that NASA has for this. In fact, it probably makes more sense that they're trying to develop a new type of DNA. I mean, my mind runs wild with the possibilities of, superhuman astronauts and maybe they're looking for a type of DNA that would perform better in space because, of course, they're always testing how the human body reacts in space. And we do know through stories that have come out over the years that when you spend enough time in space, they know through researching astronauts that our current human DNA activates in ways that it does not do here on Earth. And so perhaps they're looking to create some sort of new, more stable way to preserve life while on a space station or a space shuttle or long-range space missions. So anyways, there you go. We're going to keep an eye on that one as well. And Mr. NASA, send me an email if you know anything about this. Okay, let's move on. What do we got here? Oh, we got a few minutes. Okay. I'm going to make this one fast. This is on QZ.com, Quartz.com. Facebook content moderators end up believing conspiracy theories spread on the platform. This is very interesting. We've been tracking how conspiracy theories, mostly on the Patreon bonus update episodes, the extended reports. So if there are a couple hundred of you that who have been tracking our attempts to track conspiracy theory propaganda and just how the mainstream is painting people who dabble in conspiracy theories. And this is one of them I'll go through real quick. Some moderators tasked with policing content on Facebook end up believing conspiracy theories spread on the platform, reports Casey Newton at The Verge. It's just one of the pernicious side effects of the job, according to the scathing report, with low-paid contractors hired by Facebook in the U.S. describing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and terrible working conditions. But the phenomenon underscores just how insidious misinformation on social media can be. One moderator said a coworker often spoke about his belief that the earth is flat and would try to convince others that this was true, while another said that a colleague talked about, quote, the holohoax, seemingly a sign of Holocaust denial. Quote, conspiracy theories were often well received on the production floor, 6 moderators told me. Newton writes, with some exceptions, conspiracy theories are not banned from Facebook since the platform's community guidelines do not prohibit posting false claims. Facebook CEO and founder Mark Zuckerberg said in an interview with Recode's Kara Swisher last year that, quote, everyone gets things wrong, and that taking them down would be, quote, too extreme. And so conspiracy theories thrive on the platform. They migrate there from the fringes of the internet and are able to spread quickly. This is in part thanks to massive size of Facebook's user base and to its demographic diversity. Older users may be more prone to getting tricked into joining conspiracy groups and are generally more likely to disseminate misinformation. Hey, that's ageist. Why would older users be more prone to getting tricked? Also tricked. That's a very specific. Yeah, they don't like conspiracy theories over at Quartz.com. I don't think that would be my guess. So long story short, it's actually a rather long article, and maybe we're going to revisit it in the extended report, which you can find at patreon.com/CCNT. You can sign up for all sorts of cool rewards. One of them being that we do an extra episode of Canary Cry News Talk every single week. And we'll be exploring and tracking this type of story where, if you dabble in conspiracy theories or just alternate histories or just trying to be a free thinker, you do not want to have the mainstream media set their eyes on you, because then you're a crazy person. But as we know, Facebook, at last count, employs about 16,000 content moderators that they are very quiet about because they want us to think that they're using AI to monitor everything. They don't. They've got a bunch of very low-paid workers doing it who are, dealing with a lot of mental health issues because of all the horrible things posted on Facebook. And B, they're all becoming conspiracy theorists because they see all these stories and they are convinced. So it's very interesting that that's kind of backfiring on Facebook. And I would say probably the only reason why conspiracy theories have not been completely wiped off the face of the earth, because apparently they're so convincing to these people. Okay, everybody, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Hey, if you got friends who are not listening to the show, you got to let them know. If they want to know about robots and DNA and conspiracy theories and all sorts of fun stuff, they got to be over here listening to Canary Cry News Talk. That's right. Going out there, rattle some cages.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
I will not hide behind a wall of stone while others fight our battles.
I'm an angry man. I'm gonna rattle some cages. Leave the bird alone.
That was my attempt at the rattle some cages jingle. It's not very good, but thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. And remember to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.